That always happens. Let it out.
Do I have to introduce myself first?
Yes.
Okay.
I was just gonna say,
My name is Almarie, Toro/Ransome. I haven't officially changed my last name to Ransome, but Almarie Ransome, everyone knows me by. My husband and I pastor a small church in Clifton, New Jersey that we call Team Nations. We've been pastoring for about 4 years, going on 5 years. I've gone through a lot of things, but I think the one that would probably maybe a lot of viewers would connect to would be my infertility story. Like I wrote some notes. So at the age of 18, I was like a normal 18-year-old, and then things started happening, and like I think I gained like maybe like 40 to 50 pounds in like 6 months. And I go to the doctors, try to find out what happened, and I find out that I have a hormone imbalance where my body produces like more male hormones than female hormones. So during that time, they're like testing everything. They also find out not only do I have the hormone imbalance, I also have PCOS, and I have a lot of other things. Among them, the doctors state that basically that I was infertile. It's going to be literally impossible to none for me to have children. During this time, I had served the Lord, and I was always serving the Lord, and it like hit me hard, you know, but I was 18, so it just like it hit me hard for like a month. So it wasn't that bad, but I just like kept living my normal life, and I think things started progressing where I really like your infertility weighs on you. If you ever speak to anyone who suffers from infertility, people will always say like, you have everything, you know, why do you need that? Like, it's okay if you don't have a baby. And I think people who say that usually say that because they don't experience the emptiness you feel. Like when you want something so bad and you see everyone else has it and you just can't find the reason why, you know, I think that's very difficult, especially when we serve a God who's the author of the impossible, and doctors are telling you, well, he can't do this. So fast forward, I meet my husband, we fall in love, we get married a year and a half later, and I was 25 when I got married and he was 30. So he wanted to start having children right away. And I had mentioned to him when we were dating, you know, I'm infertile. And he was like, well, you know, we believe the word of the Lord. Like, you know, we cancel that in the name of Jesus. Like, God told me I was going to have children. And I'm like, okay. All right. So year one goes, we start trying to have kids. Nothing. And I mean nothing. It's like dry. Nothing, like absolutely nothing. Nothing but heartache. Nothing but tears. Nothing but when you're waiting on that pea stick, that's the most disheartening thing. We would buy boxes and boxes. I think we would spend maybe like hundreds of dollars on boxes of pregnancy tests for them to all be negative. During our first year of marriage, we also started pastoring. We have people who are like, oh, you guys are pastors, but you don't have children. So now that's weighing in on me. Like, not only am I infertile, but also people are telling me that because I'm an infertile woman, that my church will always be infertile. I think that was the hardest pill I had to swallow as a woman. And people would pray over me and would tell me, next year the Lord says you're gonna have a baby. And you cry at the moment, you feel God, and you're like, oh yes, I believe this, and I take this home, and you put that word into practice, and nothing happens. And year 2 rolls around and nothing happens. By year 3, I was so bitter that I wouldn't even talk about my hormone imbalance. I wouldn't tell anyone that I was infertile. I wouldn't tell anyone anything. I just started changing my language from I'm praying for a baby too. We don't want children. And it wasn't that we didn't want children. It was just I was sick and tired of crying at night. And I was sick and tired of people telling me, well, when are you going to have a baby? Or people telling me, oh, maybe if you lose 10 pounds, you'll have a baby. Maybe if you go here, and I would go there and nothing happened. Or people would bring me like stuff from like the Dominican Republic for me to drink. I drank like, The cleanse. I drank like 35 of those bottles. And I had no children by that. I think for me the hardest point was I had resigned myself, and I was so angry at God, but I still was trying to be a pastor, trying to be a good, a good born again believer. And sometimes people think that, just because you're in ministry or just because you're in, I don't know, active, or because the Lord uses you, or because you have so much knowledge that you're supposed to be happy and joyous. But, I'm living proof that I loved God, but I was angry and bitter at him. I was so angry at him for only one area in my life, and it was that. Like, you can give everyone else a baby, but you can't give me that. Like, I've done everything you've asked me to do, like, I've given up dreams that I wanted to do to pursue you, to pursue your presence, to, to start a church, even when people don't even, like, backstab you, and you can't give me that. 2014, I get invited to, 2013, I get invited for a 2014 conference. And I go to the conference, there's, like, so many women, like, between 500 to 800, I'm sure. And the conference is going amazing, and I'm the speaker at the morning session. And I'm speaking, and I'm just like so happy, and I'm really excited for this opportunity. I had never gotten an opportunity like this, so I'm like super excited. I had studied for months. I had prayed. I was like, I had everything ready. And I had everything ready, and I was like, I put my infertility in a little box, in a little closet. I'm like, this is never going to be opened. We're never going to touch on this. It's going to be okay. During the time where it's time for like to do the ministration, like for people to come up and I'm praying for people, I feel like God is just pressing in my spirit like really hard, and I'm in the altar and my body starts shaking. I remember I start sweating so much it's like coming down like thick, and I hear God is like, today you have to talk about your infertility. I was like, no. These people do not know me. They do not need to know my business. And I'm like, I'm trying to have this like super polished, like nothing is wrong with me image. And God is like, no, you need to speak about your infertility. And I'm like, no, like how? Like, I'm still angry at you. Why would you want me to speak about something I'm still angry? And then he's like, I'm going to heal wombs here. There are women that are going through what you're going through, and I need you to speak about it. And I remember asking, like, well, I know that through you I'm already healed, but is that going to be manifested in me tonight or today? And I literally hear him like, I just want to know if you're willing to give someone else what you haven't received yet. I was like, no. So I look at the lady who's doing the conference, and she's a really good friend of mine. She's a pastor. And I was like, oh my God, I'm shaking. So I'm like, can I like pray for people? So like, I couldn't fight it anymore. Like, it was literally like, I felt like God was speaking so loudly. Like, I felt like my ears were gonna pop. Like, he was like resounding within me. Like, you have to do this. So I do it, and I go ahead and do it, and like I pray, like all these women, they're like crying. I'm telling my story. I'm like, like I'm angry, but I still believe God, but like, it's okay if you're angry. And I'm like telling them my truth, basically. So I pray for the women. I go home. I kind of forget about the experience. Then months start passing by, and I start seeing some of the women start popping up and requesting me from the conference. I'm thinking it's just like regular women. They just want to connect with you. I'm like, oh, cool. They're like ultrasounds, boop, on my messenger, boop, 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 boop. ultrasounds. The first one was this lady from Hawaii. She didn't go to the conference, but she saw it on live, and I had done a global prayer for anyone who was on live. And she said she touched the screen and she touched her womb, and she showed me she had been infertile for like 15 years, had 6 miscarriages, and this was the first pregnancy that actually stuck. And I lost it. I was crying. And it's so funny. I was crying because I was happy, but as soon as I was done, I wasn't crying because I was happy. I was crying now because I was mad. The next year I go to the conference, but I don't go to speak. I just go to have fun because now I became friends with the pastor. And she goes, and during a portion of it, they bring up women. They bring up like 8 women with babies. They're like, she starts testifying. Last year, during one of the conferences, we prayed, and God used this person, Pastor Almarie, and she prayed for people's wombs, and we started praying and declaring that God would open wombs. And like all these women like started testifying, right? That God had opened their wombs. And they're telling me like, you're our spiritual grandmother. And I'm like, I'm not even a mommy. And I remember I was so happy for them, like genuinely happy. 3 days later, after the conference, I remember being home and in the shower, and I just started crying because all those feelings. And like I started counting on Messenger, and like people started giving birth around the same time. Like a year had passed, so their babies were like a couple of months, like brand new, or a couple of months. And it was a total of like 12 people that God had healed. And I remember thinking, you healed 12 people and you couldn't add one more to the list. Like, you couldn't add me? Like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm so mad at you. And to be honest with you, it didn't even turn into anger anymore. It turned into like this deep sorrow. It was like so, like the sorrow was so deep that I remember going to the church and telling my congregation, don't ever pray for me to have a baby. Please stop believing that. And I told my husband, like, I don't want to try this anymore. Like, if you want to find someone else, just find someone else. I can't do this anymore. It's too stressful. I just can't. During that time, I used to always be like, to my friends, when I'm such and such age, I'm going to be a vegetarian. During that time, it started pressing in me, like, become a vegetarian. And I'm like, maybe it's just me. Become a vegetarian, become a vegetarian, become a vegetarian. I go to a natural doctor, and the doctor's like, you know, your hormone levels, you know, that's part of the reason why you're never going to have a baby is your male hormone levels are like basically killing your reproductive organs. And I'm like, I don't need to hear this from you too. I don't need another no from you. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try it. And I went vegetarian the first 3 months, and I remember, this is gonna be gross, I don't know if you want to put this on, but I got my period so bad. Like for 21 days. Just like, it literally just cleansed me out. The next month, I got pregnant. The next month, I got pregnant. And I remember it reminded me of a word that I had received from one of my friends who's a minister, and God uses him in healing. His name is Rafael Cuevas Jr., but we call him Nuni. And I remember we were doing a live one day, exactly a year before I had gotten pregnant, and he hits up Angel. He's watching the live. He hits up Angel Castro. He says, tell Pastor Almarie she's gonna get pregnant next year. But I was so angry that I didn't believe him, and I was like, he's a liar. And like that process of like being infertile and like seeing God use me, or use my prayers, or use my hand, or use me as a vessel to give someone else the hope that I've been looking for, I think that process taught me a lot of things. You know, number one, it's all about God's timing. You know, sometimes we want something so bad, but we don't understand that God has to do it in his time. There's things about us that have to mature. Now that I have my baby, and my baby is very beautiful, praise the Lord. Amen. It taught me that there were things about me that if I would have had my baby, let's say the first year I got married, I would have never been able to start my church. If I would have done it the second year I got married, I would have never been able to go through certain struggles I went through with my husband or get the job that I have now. I would have never been able to have some of the experiences I've had or grow during that time, because I was so angry that I didn't have a natural child, that the people at church became my children, and I turned to them to fill that hole that I was missing of motherhood. So I became their spiritual mother. And I think I needed that space in order to be a spiritual mother to them, so that I could be able to nourish them and take out of them what God designed for them. And also it taught me that at the end of the day, no matter what you think that you do for God, I think I still had no matter what, I had a works mentality that felt like I was entitled to have a baby just because I did so much for God. And I think God needed to strip me of that and let me know, even in the midst, you could be doing everything you have to do, but it's my will. That doesn't entitle you to anything. I give it to you because I want to give it to you. So, those are some of the things I've learned from my infertility. But, the years of tears and anger and, all that bitterness, the moment I gave birth to that baby, that just literally, 'cause even while I was pregnant, I was still angry because I would have dreams that I would lose the baby. And the moment I gave birth to that baby, it was literally like I was being cleansed and washed. All that bitterness, all that resentment, all that anger just completely went away. So I go back to the conference when I'm pregnant, and one of the girls in the conference reminded me. She goes, I don't know if you remember, but when you were talking about your infertility, you talked about how you weren't going to come next year pregnant, that you were going to come next year to see what God was going to do, but that you were going to come the year after pregnant. And literally that's exactly how it happened. I came the next year and I saw the people give birth, and I was mad. When I was mad, I was livid. I was so mad. I was so mad. I didn't want to talk to God. If he was a boyfriend, I would have hung up on him.
One thing.
Yes,
one job.
I would have put up memes on Instagram, been petty. I was so mad. But it's just it showed me a lot, and sharing this story, I hope someone that's listening realizes that it's okay to be in the season that you're in. Sometimes having that anger is okay. God isn't gonna stop being God because you're angry. He's not gonna stop being God because you feel resentment towards him. But you have to wait in his timing. It's not about, oh, I do so much, Lord, in your name I did so much. It's waiting on him, waiting in his timing. His timing is perfect.